I'm David Muir. On World News this Saturday, tour of duty. Barack Obama is in Afghanistan tonight, just as that country comes into sharper focus. What an American general now says about al-Qaeda's possible next move. Don't ask, don't tell, where things stand 15 years later. The major shift in American opinion. Will policy follow suit? Counting calories, the food police fan out across New York City, making sure there's a certain something on your menu. Several other major cities could be next. And the battle over singing the most popular song ever. Why waiters and even the Girl Scouts have been told they're not allowed to sing it.
From ABC News headquarters in New York, this is World News.
Good evening. Barack Obama is in Afghanistan tonight, the first stop of his foreign tour. Many have argued that country poses a far bigger threat than Iraq. And tonight there's compelling evidence that might now be true. Violence in Iraq has fallen dramatically, and today there was a major political breakthrough there. And it came just as the American general in Iraq suggested al-Qaeda could now be turning its focus back to Afghanistan. We begin with our senior foreign correspondent, Jim Sciutto, who is in Kabul tonight. Jim, good evening.
Good evening, David. Every step of the way has been cloaked in secrecy, but there's no secret about the goal of Senator Obama's first overseas trip as the Democratic nominee, appearing presidential on foreign policy.
Though the destinations were new, the greeting was familiar. Senator Barack Obama signing autographs with soldiers on his first stop in Kuwait, even taking time to play some basketball. He praised the troops, but still managed to take a swipe at America's current foreign policy.
In addition to the great work that our military is doing, we've got to have much better intelligence. We've got to have much more effective diplomacy. We've got to have a clear strategic vision.
Next stop, Afghanistan, for 3 cities in one day: Kabul, Bagram, and Jalalabad, where he met with U.S. commanders and local Afghan leaders. Here in Kabul, we found the visit has generated little excitement among Afghans.
Do you think a new president will make a difference?
There won't be much difference at all, he said. He would send even more troops to Afghanistan. That's not the solution for our country.
Tonight, Senator Obama had dinner with senior Afghan officials here in Kabul, hosted by the U.S. ambassador. Tomorrow, he'll meet with the Afghan president, Hamid Karzai. He'll also be going to Iraq on this trip, David.
Jim, as you know, the top U.S. commander in Iraq, General David Petraeus, said today that he now sees signs that some al-Qaeda fighters are retreating from Iraq and refocusing on Afghanistan. We know you've spent a good deal of time reporting there. What are you hearing on the ground?
U.S. commanders are seeing evidence of that both in the east and in the south. So are Afghans reporting seeing more foreign fighters, particularly Arab fighters, on this side of the border. And I think that Senator Obama's visit today to Jalalabad was telling. Jalalabad is on the Pakistan border, and it is Pakistan that both the U.S. and Afghanistan blame for giving refuge to the Taliban and al-Qaeda.
All right, Jim Sciutto in Afghanistan tonight. Jim, many thanks. For some time now, U.S. military leaders in Iraq have conceded there is only so much they can do to stabilize the country, and that the next steps must be political. And today we learned of a major step toward that goal. ABC's Terry McCarthy is in Baghdad tonight.
David, as things appear to be getting worse in Afghanistan, in Iraq, where Senator Obama is also expected on this trip, things are actually getting better. Today, in a significant step forwards, the main Sunni party agreed to rejoin the Shiite-dominated government after a year-long boycott. Sunnis make up some 40% of the Iraqi population. The fact that Sunnis and Shiites are now prepared to sit down and work together will be welcomed by many. Last year, they stood on the brink of a civil war. This year, the levels of violence in Iraq continue to decrease. So far this month, 5 American soldiers have been killed in combat, a fraction of the tally from just 1 year ago. Violence levels are also down sharply amongst Iraqi civilians. The U.S. military says overall attacks are at their lowest levels since 2004. The economy is improving too. The country even opened a new international airport in the southern city of Najaf today. Obama spoke out against the surge last year, which he didn't think would work. When he comes to Baghdad and sees the situation on the ground, he'll have to come to terms with the fact that finally some things are working. David?
Terry McCarthy in Baghdad tonight. Terry, thank you. Those shifting dangers in Iraq and Afghanistan present a very real challenge to presidential rivals Barack Obama and John McCain, who have already staked out positions about what to do in both of those countries. ABC's John Hendren reports tonight on where the candidates stand and how they may now have to reassess their strategies.
As the presidential race began, both sides staked out clear positions. Barack Obama said the troop surge in Iraq would fail to cut violence or improve political reconciliation.
Iraq is an impediment.
John McCain called Iraq the center of the war on terror.
President Bush has talked about our staying in Iraq for 50 years.
Maybe 100.
In political campaigns, as in war, the sands shift over time, as both candidates pointed out this week.
But we all remember quite well that he said the surge would fail, and today we know that he was wrong.
The central front in the war on terror is not Iraq, and it never was.
With Iraq improving and Afghanistan mired in a worsening insurgent fight, Obama's trip will give him a high-profile opportunity to seize on the changing calculus of the war on terror.
In Iraq, he's playing defense. In Afghanistan, he's trying to profit from an opportunity.
Iraq's government presented one opportunity by endorsing Obama's position. Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki told the German magazine Der Spiegel in today's edition that Obama's plan to withdraw troops in 16 months would be the right time frame for withdrawal.
It is very likely that he will look as if he has a very in-depth understanding of the players, the regions, the place names, the importance of the policy.
Obama's tour of the war zone gives him perhaps the best opportunity in this campaign to gain ground in the one area where polls show voters trust McCain more. But McCain won't be giving up that ground easily, and he'll be watching Obama's highly publicized trip for any missteps.
You're faced with jet lag and you're fatigued going in. It's very easy to just stumble over a word or two and end up with a giant controversy. That's the nightmare scenario for Obama.
McCain spending the weekend at a baseball game and closed-door fundraisers, ceding world attention to his globe-trotting rival. John Hendren, ABC News, Washington.
With the headlines out of the region, Iraq safer and Afghanistan growing more dangerous, we get some political analysis now from Mark Halpern of Time Magazine, also a political analyst for ABC News. John McCain has long said that this surge in Iraq would work. Obama has said it would not. So how does Obama now frame this with him in the region?
David, this is big stakes. Both campaigns know it, and it is I told you so politics on both sides. Senator Obama is going to say, look, the government of Iraq is now saying there should be troop withdrawals along a certain timetable. Even the Bush administration now is headed in that direction. Obama's going to say, I was right all along. A withdrawal needs to happen under the next president. On McCain, though, it's also I told you so. He's going to say, because the surge continued, which I supported and Senator Obama didn't, that's what's put the United States in a position to maybe start withdrawing troops.
So much has been made of the media attention Obama will get while he's abroad. McCain cannot escape this, not even on late-night TV. He was asked about it. Let's take a look.
Senator Obama is getting a lot of press attention, taking his first trip to the Middle East.
Well, I'm glad he's going. I think it's important that he sit down with General Petraeus and go to Afghanistan, where he's never been before, and see the situation, because I think the situation is very tough in Afghanistan as well.
How big of a struggle is it for the McCain campaign to get a headline out of this with Obama abroad?
Well, there is going to be a lot of coverage of the trip, there's no question, and it's a big moment. What the McCain campaign is going to try to do throughout this long trip is to raise questions about Senator Obama's ability to be commander-in-chief, about some of his past judgments. They're going to try to take the opportunity, not run from the fight, because they can't. It's their biggest point of contrast. It's their biggest advantage in the eyes of the voters now to say Senator Obama is not ready to be president.
And just a few seconds left, Senator Obama is meeting some of these world leaders for the first time.
This is a big thing, not just the politics, but the substance. He's the odds-on favorite to be the next president. He's going to be sitting across the table from these people if he wins negotiating as president. He's got to get that personal bonds on this trip that he can use come January if he wins.
Time Magazine's Mark Halpern tonight. Mark, thank you. In Geneva, Switzerland today, an American diplomat joined talks on Iran's nuclear program. The meeting produced no major breakthrough on Iran's nuclear program, but as ABC's Rachel Martin reports, it marks a real shift in U.S. policy.
It may have been the first time an American face was at the table, but the conversation was very much the same as it has been through years of deadlock on Iran's nuclear program. On the table, a promise by the U.S. and other allies to freeze UN sanctions against Iran if Iran freezes its nuclear enrichment program. Iran did not accept or reject the deal, so the meeting ended with more questions and more tough talk.
We hope very much that the Iranian people will understand the opportunities that our proposals open for them. Cooperation instead of confrontation.
the presence of a top-level American diplomat had raised expectations. Ambassador William Burns was sent to Geneva just to observe, but his presence sent a message.
The United States doesn't have any permanent enemies.
That's a far cry from 2002, when President Bush named Iran part of the infamous axis of evil. Over the past few years, Iran's nuclear program has driven U.S.-Iranian relations from bad to worse. After years of diplomatic deadlock and veiled threats of military action by both sides, some suspect the U.S. is changing course.
What's ultimately prevailed in U.S.-Iran relations is this tremendous mistrust and ill will. But again, just getting the two representatives in one room is an accomplishment.
Analysts are hailing the apparent shift towards Iran as a softer, gentler foreign policy by a Bush White House looking to shore up its legacy. But administration officials are framing the change carefully. The Iranians now have 2 weeks to accept or reject the deal. If not, Iran could face more UN economic sanctions, and any door the U.S. has opened to dialogue may quickly close. Rachel Martin, ABC News, Washington.
In South Korea today, a helicopter carrying the Reverend Sun Myung Moon crashed during an emergency landing in bad weather. Officials there say the 88-year-old founder of the Unification Church was slightly injured. Moon has political and financial connections around the globe. Among his many properties, the conservative American newspaper, the Washington Times. And in Australia, Pope Benedict apologized publicly for the sexual abuse of children by members of the Catholic clergy there. He called the abuse a, quote, grave betrayal of trust and said abusers should be brought to justice. And still ahead here on World News this Saturday, they had skills the Pentagon called critical. But Don't Ask, Don't Tell got them kicked out of the military. 15 years later now, the dramatic shift in public opinion. The calorie count tonight, big fines start in the Big Apple. What are restaurants leaving off the menu? And whose song is it anyway? Happy birthday to you. Should you really have to pay just to sing happy birthday? We're going to take a closer look tonight at the role of gays in the U.S. military and a dramatic turnaround in American public opinion. 15 years ago today, President Clinton unveiled his controversial Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. And back then, less than half of Americans supported the idea of allowing gays to serve openly. Now, a new ABC News Washington Post poll shows a full 3/4 of Americans support it. Here's ABC's Miguel Marquez tonight.
Eric Alva was the first American injured in Iraq.
It's computerized.
3 hours into the war, a landmine blew off his right leg.
As you can see, I lost my index finger.
A staff sergeant in the Marines, he was hailed as a hero.
In Bethesda, at the side of my bed, President Bush, even, the First Lady, as she gave me a hug, they call me a hero.
Because of his injury, he was honorably discharged.
A part of me in Iraq died, shedded blood, and for the people of this country.
Last year, Alva announced he was gay and says not only does the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy have to be overturned, but the military should go farther to protect gays.
Would there have to be some sort of law, some sort of rule to protect gays in the military?
Sure. I mean, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the UCMJ, would probably have to be changed as well.
Since the policy was adopted in 1993, 12,500 men and women have been dismissed from the military. The Service Members Legal Defense Network, a gay advocacy group, says nearly 800 of those dismissed had skills the Pentagon deemed mission critical. For example, 300 language experts have been forced out, including 58 specializing in Arabic.
I think over the years, people have begun to ask whether it really serves that purpose.
When then President Clinton announced the policy, he paid a heavy political price for it. 15 years later, is the military and the country ready to revisit Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
The two presidential candidates differ sharply.
It is working, my friends. The policy is working.
I will reverse the policy when I'm president of the United States of America.
A bipartisan study by retired military officers concluded that gays serving in the military would have little effect on a unit's ability to fight. But many soldiers disagree.
When you undermine trust and confidence because of forced intimate situations where there's sexual tension, same-sex tension, then you really hurt the overall ability of an organization to function effectively.
Eric Alva says the military should accept him, just as many of his Marine colleagues already have.
As of today, 3 of my friends, 3 Marines, I'm godfather to 3 of their sons.
Alva will testify before Congress next week on the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. Miguel Marquez, ABC News, San Diego.
Our closer look for tonight. And when we come back here on the broadcast, the new numbers on restaurant menus, it's not the prices that may give you sticker shock. Churning off the southeast seaboard tonight, the first tropical storm to threaten the U.S. this hurricane season. Cristobal's center is about 125 miles east of Charleston, South Carolina. It's moving northeast. It's expected to bring much-needed rain to the Carolinas before heading back out to sea. New York City today became the first in the nation to enforce a law requiring restaurant chains to post calorie counts on their menus. It's part of a growing trend among health officials trying to address this country's rising epidemic of obesity. Here's ABC's Gigi Stone tonight.
Visitors to New York's Times Square were stunned today at the sight of something they'd never seen before.
We actually have been talking about it all morning because we saw it at Starbucks. I was shocked.
They're talking about the menu boards here. All the major chain restaurants in New York, McDonald's, Burger King, Starbucks, are now required to post the calories along with the prices.
We're from St. Louis, Missouri.
They don't have them posted there.
No, and it really, I didn't realize how many calories were in what I ate.
And I was like, wow. Like, a hamburger's 1,000. I was like, oh my God.
This bran muffin has 480 calories. This chocolate donut, 230.
Oh my God. Restaurants don't want people to know because they're nervous. People are going to be upset and they're going to have to begin to change their offerings.
The rule has been in place here in New York since April, but enforcement began today with fines of up to $2,000.
Can I get everything?
Health officials say this will help Americans trim their waistlines, but the restaurant industry says it will have no effect.
They're going to look and see how many calories it has, and maybe for a day or so they might switch to something else. And we've seen this already. They're going to go back to what they enjoy and what they want to have.
Similar laws will go into effect in San Francisco and Seattle later this year. The restaurant industry is fighting all of them. Gigi Stone, ABC News, New York.
Well, the new Batman movie Dark Knight is a record breaker. Warner Brothers says it sold more tickets in a single day around the world than any movie opening in box office history. Yesterday it brought in $66.4 million. Analysts expect it to break the record for an opening weekend as well. Both records were held by Spider-Man 3. I guess Batman prevails. When we come back here in the broadcast tonight, a sour note about a song we all know and love. Here's a question to ponder tonight. Do you have the right to sing Happy Birthday? Wherever there's a birthday, you're likely to hear the song that goes with it. In fact, just yesterday in South Africa, Nelson Mandela turned 90.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, darling.
Happy Birthday is sung around the world, so you may be surprised to learn that it's copyrighted. We were, and it earns millions for the company that owns it. Here's ABC's John Cochran now.
It is considered the most popular song ever written, sung to both popes and dictators. It's the first song performed in outer space.
Happy birthday to you. That was magnificent.
Everyone knows the words. What few know is that Happy Birthday to You is copyrighted. Perform it in public, and you're supposed to pay up.
If you want to use it in a television show, a movie, a TV commercial, you'll pay anywhere from, I'd say, $5,000 to $30,000.
Turns out this little ditty is a big cash machine, generating $2 million in royalties every year for music publisher Warner Chappell. They collect for Happy Birthday ringtones. The Girl Scouts were warned they would have to pay a fee if campers sing it. Even restaurants are supposed to pay, which is why some chains use an alternative version for free. But Professor Brownice has just written the definitive history of the song and concludes no one should be paying anything.
A court, more likely than not, would find it not to be under copyright, that it is in fact in the public domain.
It all goes back to sisters Mildred and Patty Hill, kindergarten teachers who wrote Good Morning to All in 1893. Good morning, dear children. Good morning to all. 42 years later, the same melody with new lyrics was copyrighted in their name as the Happy Birthday song we know today. But there is a problem.
There's no evidence that these two sisters wrote those particular words.
Happy birthday to
Warner Chappell insists the copyright is solid until it expires in the year 2030. Still, the music publisher has not always collected a fee. And of course, some versions are priceless.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
John Cochran, ABC News.
You knew we'd work that into the piece, and that is World News for this Saturday. Tomorrow night right here, the 100th birthday of General Motors. We're going to take a closer look at the new technology that may save the American auto industry. That's tomorrow night. I'm David Muir. From all of us here at ABC News, thanks for watching. Hope to see you back here tomorrow. Good night.
اليوم على MBC 4. MBC 4. It's for you.